Hi, hello. Welcome back to my channel. I am Bekah Jo, aka the Makeup Tax Lady. Today's video, I want to talk about the Nomad Cosmetics Orient Express palette. I am going to do one look with you today. I've got two additional looks that you'll see after we put this one together today. So if you weren't aware, Nomad Cosmetics is retiring this palette as well as their Cartagena Mágica palette. Forgive me if I pronounce that incorrectly. They're retiring those two as well as the Venice-Simplon Express palette, which is the smaller version of this one. Those three palettes are looking to be retired in this month, the month of September. So this is not a scare tactic, but I wanted to show you that I recently picked up this palette, show you some of the looks that I made with it to help you decide whether it's something you want to pick up in the next couple weeks. So the focus of today's look was using the 9 shades that are in both the Orient Express and the Venice-Simplon Express palette. I'll walk you through what those shades are here in just a minute. I also got the inspiration to do this from Jan, so I'll include her video down below. She did a look with the Orient Express palette using the shades that are in the Venice-Simplon Express palette as well. And yeah, I hope that you have fun today. Let me know what you think about the video, about the palette, if you're interested, if it's not it for you. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. I'd love to have you subscribe and stick around for some future videos. All right, let's get into our first look. So here is our 18 pan palette, the Nomad Cosmetics Orient Express palette. Nomad also makes a 9 pan palette that pulls 9 of the shades from this 18 pan palette. So let's point those out. They are the shades London, Baby Grand, Bar 3674, Roaring 20s, Venice, Bon Voyage, Nightcap, Grand Suite, and Istanbul. So with this first of 3 looks that you'll be seeing in this video, I want to use some of those 9 shades so that if you choose to get the smaller version of this palette, the Simplon Express, this will be inspiration for a look that you can do with those shades. Okay, I think I want to do a halo eye situation. We're going to start with Baby Grand and work that into the crease. I just realized that I forgot to put on eyeshadow primer, but I think we can keep going. So far this blended really well just over the concealer that I have on my lids. I would be more concerned about having an eyeshadow primer on if I was expecting it to last all day, but I'm just playing around with makeup today. Don't need it to last all day, so I am fine without the primer. Next, I'm going to go into the shade Nightcap. That's a beautiful blend. I'm going to build that up on the outer corner and the inner corner. So I'm not a repeat user of a halo eye shape, so we're just gonna forgive the shape if it's a little bit off. I'm gonna go back in with those 2 mattes under the eyes as well. Now I want to go into Grand Suite, and we'll use that kind of on the inner portions of the halo eye. This shade is more of a satin than it is a full-on shimmer or metallic. And using a brush, it's going to be a little bit less opaque. Next, I'm going to use my finger and I'm going to go into Istanbul, and I'm going to put that through the center on both the top and the bottom. Next, I'm going to go into the bar 3674 shade here, and I'm going to put that kind of over the matte, between the brown matte and the green satin shade on both inner and outer corner, just for a little extra pizzazz. Last but not least for this look, I'm going to take London and put that on the inner corners. Okay, here's the look with all the shadows on. I'm gonna go add mascara and touch up my face, add a little bit of a lip, and I'll be right back. Okay, so here is the finished look for today. This was really fun, and I like the way that these shades all turned out. I added a lippy, let me grab it. Brand new to me, just showed up in the mail yesterday. This is from Unearthly Cosmetics, and this is the shade Amber. It's got this fun little like snow globe effect on the top of the product. And I added a little more blush. I have a palette of my single blush shades from Sydney Grace, so I mixed a few of those together and threw those all over because I love blush. Okay, now let's go take a look at the other two looks that I did with this palette. The first look that you'll see is more blue. I pulled into some of the blue shades from the palette. And then the second look, which you'll see, but I used the shade Venice, which is why I didn't use it in today's look. It's a beautiful special shade. You'll see in that look that I swatched Venice two different ways on the back of my hand. One more opaque and one a little bit lighter and more sheer. And because I was putting it on for work that day, I decided to go with a little bit more sheer so it wasn't quite so poppy. But that's one thing that I love to do with special shades. You can use them, you know, full on opacity and they're beautiful, but sometimes I want to take it back just a notch. And so I chose to do that on that second day of wearing this palette. And I really, really enjoyed the way that that turned out. So let's go look at those now. So those are my 3 looks with my Nomad Cosmetics Orient Express palette. This is not a new palette, as we well know, but it is being retired by the brand. The month of September, this current month, less than half the month is left. And I don't say that as a scare tactic. I say that as if you're interested in it, now's the time to look for it. It's currently available for $19 on their website, which is the price that I got it for. And I think that's an excellent deal for an 18 pan eyeshadow palette. This palette includes 10 matte shades, 3 duochrome shades, 4 foiled shades, and 1 velvet shimmer. And to be honest, I don't remember which shade is which. To me, this is the most special shade in the palette, Venice. The smaller version, the 9 pan version, Simplon, oh, it's Venice-Simplon Express. I think I said that wrong previously. Venice-Simplon Express. That smaller palette is $9. So a couple things that you probably noticed about this palette right off the bat. First of all, there's a couple bold colors in here. We've got a true blue, a true red, a true yellow, and then there's some greens in here as well. And I do understand that that can be intimidating, and that's totally fine. You may, on the other hand, if those are shades that you like, you may be looking at this palette and saying, oh, there's so many brown neutrals, how boring. Personally, I think that's a genius combination. I really enjoy brown neutrals to ground any colorful look that I'm doing. I will tell you, I'm not usually one to combine those bright, colorful shades. So to combine the bright blue, the true blue and the true red in a look would be pushing it for me. I'm not planning to do swatches with this palette. Again, it's been out a while. I'm sure that there are videos out there doing swatches. If you're interested in seeing me do swatches, I'll be happy to do a YouTube short or an Instagram reel and show you those swatches. I didn't want it to take up extra time in this video. So the second thing that you may have noticed about this palette is that for the most part, it's all lighter and mid-tone shades. So I think whether that's going to be something you enjoy totally comes down to preferences. Personally, I really enjoy having a variety of light to mid-tone shades. I think I can do a lot of different looks, a lot of different contrast with light to mid-tone shades. That said, I do wish, I used this shade today, I do wish there was one that was a bit darker than that in the palette, but regardless, I enjoy overall that it's a more light to mid-tone palette. I definitely think there are a couple shades in this palette too that would be beautiful as one and done shades. I think you can do one and done shades with a matte. I think that's often overlooked, but you know, you've got some great choices for doing that with a matte in here. I think a couple of these shimmers especially would be beautiful as one and done shades. So I think the shades London and Venice in particular, you could probably do it with just about any of them, but those are the 2 that I see right off the bat and I think, oh, that would be beautiful as a one and done shade. So let me swatch those 2 on the back of my hand real quick. Of course, we already saw swatches of Venice in my second look. Here's London. And here is Venice. I'm gonna add just a little bit more to London to make sure you can see it. There we go. It's a really light wash of color. I think that can be really pretty if you're going for just kind of an understated, sophisticated wash of color. I think using something like either of these shades, but especially I think London would be beautiful for that. I know that because this was an older palette of Nomads, I've heard folks say that the quality has only increased. My only other palette is Ghost Town USA, and I have a video up on this one already. I'll include that down below if you're curious. So I really only have these 2 palettes to compare. I would say the shimmers especially are different formulas. I don't know if I've used the mattes well enough to differentiate formulas. The shimmers are definitely different formulas. So it really is just a matter of preference. Ghost Town USA has, my understanding is a new formula for them, totally new formula. They're a little bit more squishy. Sorry, I got distracted by the packaging. It's really cool. They're a little bit more of a squishy formula and sparkly. And then these, I mean, each of the shades is just a little bit different because we have the duochromes, the foils, the velvet shimmer in there. But I do think they're really pretty shades. They're not the most metallic shades that I own, but I also own a lot of Sydney Grace, and their metallic shades are metallic. I do think, like I've said, the combination of brown neutrals, little pops of color, and the light to mid-tone shades are very fitting for me. And I look at this color story, and because of some of the distinct bold colors, it's a challenge for me, and I really enjoy that. Also, if I haven't said it yet, the palette is kind of a squishy velvet on the front, and it has kind of a nice luxurious feel. I don't know how well this will hold up over time, but right now, while it's pretty and clean, I enjoy it. So one thing that I did in my Ghost Town USA palette that I wanted to run through really quick with the Orient Express palette is just seeing what other palettes that I might have that are similar. And I don't have any that are exact dupes. I don't know that there's any palettes out there, at least that I'm aware of, that would be dupes for this. And that's not my intention. My intention is to kind of compare color stories just overall, so that maybe if you have something in your collection of the other palettes I'm discussing, you can see how it would compare to picking up Orient Express or vice versa. So probably the closest in terms of color story to Orient Express is my Glaminatrix U Beauty palette. And I think the biggest thing about that is because we've got the blue matte, and we've got the red matte, and we've got the yellow matte, and then we've got some gold shimmers in here. Definitely not dupes, but similar concepts, if you will. Next up, again, definitely not a dupe, and I think with each of these palettes we're getting a little bit further away from a dupe, is Sydney Grace Tiny Marvels. So we've got a little pop of green in here, pop of gold, and then some neutrals. But even the colorful shades in here are different than the colorful shades in this palette. Next, for comparison, Sydney Grace Tropicolor. Tropicolor has fewer neutrals, brown neutrals specifically. But we've got some blue, we've got some yellow. And last but not least, and honestly, I'm only mentioning this one because I mentioned it in my Ghost Town USA palette. Holding them up next to each other, they're not dupes, but this is my Blend Bunny Surge palette. This is all colorful. We don't have a primary red, blue, or green in here. You could consider them good companion palettes though. Maybe you like really colorful shades but with a pop of neutral, and so you could use them together in combination that way. So maybe this is a palette that you've eyed at any point since they've launched it and never chosen to take the plunge. Maybe you picked it up and now you're looking for some inspiration. You've had it in your collection for some time. I hope this video was fun for you. I hope that you had some fun seeing the looks that I've put together with it. I'm thinking about going through a series on my channel of doing multiple looks, one palette, with just all of the palettes that I have. Of course, most of us aren't getting every new palette as soon as it launches, so having the 3 looks, or having the multiple looks, one palette inspiration, I think would be something that would last well out there. Maybe you picked up this palette soon, before the end of the month, or maybe you picked it up when it originally launched and now you've still got it in your collection and you're thinking, you know, I've already paid for this, I already own it. I would like some inspiration on what more I could do with this palette. I'm wondering if doing multiple looks, one palette videos would help with that. And even if you don't have the same palette that I have, maybe it's an inspiration to shop your stash. Let me know what you think about that idea, or if you have any particular palettes in mind that you've been looking at or that you just picked up and you'd be looking for inspiration for. I would be happy to do that. I work a full-time job, and while I enjoy the fun, crazy, colorful makeup, I can't do that on an everyday basis. And so I like to find ways to take some crazy, bold color stories, and maybe this one's crazy bold to you too, but I like to find a way to take those more dramatic color stories and make them fitting even for the everyday office gal. So let me know what you think of today's look, of the other 2 looks that I've done with this palette, of the palette itself, and of this video. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Please subscribe and let me know what you'd like to see next. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. See you next time.